And like y'all said at the beginning of the show, I didn't fish any real national events this year, but almost every one of the trails that I fished, the Texas KBL Trail and the All-Star Trail, I mean, there's so many good anglers out there that, I mean, you really have to have one of the days like I had the other day where it's like everything just falls into place. You know, I kind of gave credit to God because I was like, I know some people might think it's luck, but I was like, man, I feel like it was just, I just kind of had that, I guess what's the right word? I had this little voice in my head. It was like I was moving around that day of that tournament, and something told me to switch gears and start trying a different technique with about an hour and a half to go, and that really paid the price for me. But I know the tournament just before this was the Texas KBL Classic for me. It's a 2-day tournament, and I mean, it's the guys that fish that trail. I mean, there's probably kind of like you're saying, there's probably 7 or 10 of those guys that are consistently, when they do go fish the national trails, they may not have the time to, but when they do, they're always very competitive in those trails. So I know that last event before the throwdown, I felt like I got a little bit of momentum. I didn't cash a check, but I finished in 7th. It was the top 50 of the Texas KBL event. I didn't get the big bites, but I had a good finish there, and it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence going into this event, and everything just seemed to fall into place for me.
Ryan, how many times we talked about that, man? When it's time to win, like the stars align. You get all the breaks, you make the right moves, you make the right calls. We've talked about that so many times. But
37 times.
Yeah, I mean it's real. I mean, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Yeah, but pivot back over to you, Eric, man. You know, a couple weeks ago you won the championship. You talked about being on a heater, and we'll get into the differences between you.
Yeah, you know, I've been to Guntersville, you know, maybe 4 or 5 times, and most of the times I've fished way north. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to fish south, and got some input from some folks that have had some experience there. And I'm not a really good grass fisherman, and Guntersville is not the ideal place for somebody that doesn't particularly like to fish grass. And so I was kind of I was trying to find something that wasn't grass. So I practiced on Thursday down south, basically downtown Guntersville, and there's tons of riprap and some bridges and pylons and more. There's big factories right on the river there, and so it's kind of an interesting dynamic. And I go upriver, current's probably 3-4 miles an hour. It's flooded, but there was some areas you could get into that I've never been able to access, you know, even at full pool. So I got to do some exploring and just absolutely wrecked them. I mean, wrecked them. And there was nobody up there. And I was like, okay, what do I do on Saturday? And so I said, you know what, I'm going to start south. And I'm an hour, solid hour from my north spot. And I get going, have a small limit by maybe 10:30 or 11. My first fish of the day on Sunday was 21 3/4. I'm like, well, that's a good start, you know. And at that point, I thought, you know what, this is going to be my tournament, my day. It's going to happen. And so I keep fishing. I don't get another bite until 10:30, and I'm about to panic because I probably caught 40 fish in practice in that same stretch. And I'm like, they got to be here somewhere. And at about 10:30, I caught a 17 3/4, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stick it out here. I'm gonna just keep making my way up to the kind of area where I really got some better bites. And Lambert probably knows exactly where I was at, but there's two concrete walls in the river that almost create a secondary channel. And there's a whole bunch of these barge ties, caissons, whatever you call them. And I'd gotten a big bite there in the summer Guntersville tournament on the second day, and I didn't hook up with it. And it was kind of strange because I was fishing a spinnerbait like I was fishing a foot of water, and it was 22 or 23 feet deep there. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I got up to that point, and I had 4 fish, and 3 good ones and 1 smaller fish. And my 5th fish for Sunday, I threw a chatterbait down there, let it sink to the bottom, and almost fished it like a flutter spoon, and one just blistered it, and it was a 20.5. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is going to happen. So then I started looking at the leaderboard, and I rarely ever sandbag fish.